how to escape or prison break the 3D world or reality, our construct of our reality by focusing on only one thing. So let's discuss about that. So this morning I woke up with a very vivid dream that I was locked up in a prison. Maybe in the 60s, 70s or 80s, I'm not quite sure, but it was a very old prison, and our first attempt was with a group trying to escape because we found all sort of ladders to the roofs and all of that. And it was a very crappy old prison. But then the whole group basically got caught because we made so much noise. And then we were being guided back into this prison. And then with one other guy, we found an opportunity to climb a ladder that was leading towards the roof. And I was walking up front, and this other guy, he was walking behind me. And while he was getting caught, I found a way to jump over the roofs and the rooftops, and through some very narrow alleys, I found my way to get back on the streets. And then I realized that I was basically entering the world of an old Amsterdam, a different kind of Amsterdam. Amsterdam perhaps in the 80s, where it was still Amsterdam and not nowadays. I'm not going into that right now. But the first thing that I noticed is that there were like big police stations like everywhere. And of course what Amsterdam is known for, red light districts and prostitutes walking on the streets, the working girls walking on the streets trying to chase me. Funny though. So, but then eventually I still got caught by the police and the prison warden and all of that. And while I was getting caught, one of these prison guards, they wanted to shoot off my hands. And I decided for myself, I will never go back into this prison. So what I did, I got a knife and I was trying to stab out my left eye. Because I thought that would be suicide, so I would never go back into this prison. Now, horrible dream, you might say. So let's try to go through this interpretation of what it actually could mean metaphorically into this today's world, today's reality. So 3D world, 3D reality. That is basically the physical world that we can perceive around us, okay? Using our 5 basic senses of perceiving. Let it be the eyes of seeing, the ears of hearing, the mouth of taste. We have the hands, of course, of touch, and the nose of smelling. These are our 5 basic ways of perceiving the world around us. But as mentioned before, and if you are also like me, you have been through numerous spiritual awakenings, that you are moving beyond this physical reality, 3D reality, and where you start to question everything, like what else is behind this veil of beyond our flesh and blood as human beings. Because can we really escape this realm? Of course, when we jump on the internet, we see a lot of fancy lifestyle of people who have made it out of the matrix by earning more money so they could upgrade their lifestyle and giving themselves more access to material things and better options of what life and the 3D world of this time has to offer us. So we've got a very old boat passing by. I will let it pass by so we can continue. But the question, like, what is really the 3D world? The 3D world, it's our construct of beliefs. It is also the ego that, let's say, the isolated ego of who do we think we are and how do we think we should be based on the expectations and conditions of our outside world. But the question, of course, is like, is that really who we are? Or is it just some kind of analytical things we have developed an analytical, rational skill set, so we could, you know, somewhat survive in this material world. And then have access to things and have options in life. Okay, so that's really kind of like what this ego really does. And if we want to have more access, if we want more better options in life, then what we start to do, we start climbing this mountain of the ego, of developing our self-concept of personal identity. Okay, so the rich, let's say, for example, I'm not saying like to generalize, but let's say wealthy people, they say, my major concern is my reputation in the world, because everything that I do is based on a transaction, and I must have access to luxury items like sport cars, luxury cars, super yachts and all of that, because they serve as a key to get access to a more elite table of more influential people, and that can help me to become more wealthy. So they are more and more and more and more in touch with, let's say, a superficial, artificial facades of an ego, of a self-construct, of what they think who they are and who they should be based on the expectations and conditions of their outside world, their influence, let's so to speak. Until you come to the realization, you have climbed this mountain of the ego, you are on the top of the world, and then you realize, wait a minute, I still experience a void within me. That is a signal and sign that this is not everything that I am supposed to be. Maybe I can be more. I can be someone or something different, because what I have doesn't really feel authentic to who I really am at a deeper level, and everything that I have based on this survival based egocentric ego, this personal identity, is nothing more than a facade on how to survive. So this self-construct can basically be nothing more than a self-created prison. Okay? So to come back and to give you a personal example of where I'm at, because I've climbed this mountain of having better options and have more access to material things through finances, chasing down money, wealth and all of that. And then I realized, wait a minute, you know, this is not really like the whole picture. This is not really why I'm here in this lifetime. And then what started to happen, that I had this very lower self-egocentric ego. And then all of a sudden I had an awakening. I had a realization, like, wait a minute, there are outer layers behind and beyond this self-construct that suddenly start to penetrate a deeper sense of myself, and that basically pulverized this ego of self-construct. Realizing, wait a minute, I live in a prison, a self-created prison. Because let's face it, how most of us are living our life. You know, you wake up in the morning, you get dressed, you do your thing, you go and get in your car, you go to your job, spend 8 hours there, you come back home, you have a dinner, maybe you do some exercise, and you distract yourself with some entertainment, and the next day the whole circle repeats itself, so you could just pay the bills and have limited access. Now you could think, okay, so I'm going to start my own business, so I could have better options and I can have more access in the world. That's basically our life. Is this a prison of our modern day world? Yes or no? I leave that question to you, and you find the answer to yourself, and maybe you want to share your insights in the comment box below. But what if we realize that we have more potential to unfold that exists within ourselves? More realities that we can access, more and different states of consciousness, and different kind of worlds that we can have access to. So coming back to my dream through this dream interpretation, let's say I wanted to escape that prison, which refers to my current reality of how I currently live my life, that somewhat I feel kind of like limited in my way of life of just working a normal mundane job that just kind of pays the bills, that give me a basic access under the name and the illusion of safety, security and comfort. Okay? But does that really give me true freedom? Now you could say, well, you need to have material freedom, you need to have access and options in life, fair enough. But is that the whole picture of freedom and independence and autonomy and authenticity? This is of course like the very linear timeline of how we think we should be living our life. While access, we also have a virtual reality of where we can bend space-time and travel throughout different kind of realms and different kind of dimensions that exist within us as well, all around us and within us. So coming back to that, eventually I got caught by police and the prison warden, where I wanted to step out my own eye because I thought I would kill myself. This could refer to, let's say, another ego death and spiritual awakening and going through different forms of spiritual shamanic initiation. All refers to going through different stages of ego death. Okay, is where we can somewhat kill the concept of self, of who do we think we are based on the expectations of, you know. So this ego depth refers then eventually to where we will be able to let more light into our shadow self, of how we have created a prison for ourselves based on the world we are trying to live in and survive in, that can expand something within ourself. Just like stabbing the eye, the left eye, could also refer to the balance between the left and the right hemisphere of our brain. The left, of course, to logic, analytical way of thinking, rationalizing things, our intellect. And some of us are really good at that. We want to rationalize everything, we want to analyze everything, and through analyze we can paralyze. That's, for some of us, we must be able to connect more with the right hemisphere of our brain through developing emotional intelligence and more the spiritual side, and being able to perceive a more holistic side of life, where we can also perhaps travel through different realms, different states of consciousness and dimensions, and access more our creativity and our flow, our divine flow of inspiration and insight, where we can embody, we can bring something in that can come in through us and that can be expressed by us, of what it is that we really want to be, do and have, what it is that we really want to bring into the world. Then what starts to happen is this false ego, this lower sense ego, start to align more with a higher self, where we integrate more, where we start to have a more of an integrated ego or identity that is more in a line with who we really are and who we are really supposed to be. Because let's face it, we live here in this 3D world, and for those who have been through lots of spiritual awakenings, shamanic initiations, we start to realize that we start to live in two different worlds. With one leg we live in the normal mundane world, where we have to go into a job, pay the bills and all of that stuff, and then we go to sleep and we take our astral body into different dimensions, and that's really where we do our will work, and then we bring in the insights of our astral body back here in this normal mundane world where we kind of start to integrate everything and come into alignment. That's the real work that we are doing. Now, of course, this whole prison can also refer to the time that we are living in, where I spoke about in my previous videos of, you know, the social control systems and all of that. I think you have heard me saying that for quite a few times, which for some of us feels like a bit like thinking in doom and gloom. But what if this becomes part of our reality as well? But the only way to raise above that is where we integrate more with our higher self and connect that with our lower self. So this is kind of like this personal dream interpretation of how we can escape the 3D world and the matrix perhaps, and how we can move beyond that and ascend and bring in more of what it is that we are really here to bring. And also, like blinding our left eye, I think that also refers to the archetype of Odin, you know, the All-Father, of the king of the Asgard, of the upper world, that is here to bring knowledge, wisdom, poetry, philosophy, who is the king of the warriors, who built it up, who brought over the warriors who were killed in battle, so he would prepare these warriors in an afterlife for the real spiritual battle, this real spiritual war that we are facing. And that is the Ragnarok that we are facing, the end times, in order to rebirth a new kind of era. And he blinded himself so he could gain the internal cosmic knowledge of the 9 different realms, the 9 different worlds of the world tree, the Yggdrasil, and gain the knowledge of the runes, the symbols and the building blocks of our cosmic library. That is one other insight that I want to give, and I leave it with you what of course you got out of this. Anyway, thanks for being here. I look forward to see you in one of my next videos. Take care for now.